Hello YouTube. Okay, so this morning I look at the BBC News website. BBC News is the UK mainstream news, a major one, and surprise, surprise, there was like a headline on. It was actually. Let me have a look at this here. It was a UFO sighting. But it was the Radio 5 Live's sports reporter, okay, a sports reporter called Mike Sewell. Okay, so he spotted at about 4:30 this morning, I think if my memory serves me right, a massive UFO, okay, and there's a video on the BBC News website of him. It's only what, like 3.5 minutes long. It's not a very long one, but it's his testimony as to what he saw. He didn't take any photographs or video footage, which I think kind of makes it a little bit more authentic, because I can understand debunkers of UFO testimonials and what have you, where okay, it just so happens that the person has had access to a camera or a video camera. That's a bit convenient, isn't it? Okay, so I can understand that, although I don't discredit everything I see just because someone was lucky enough to have a video camera. I mean, there's billions of people on this planet, and you know, I'm sure that it's not out of the question to think that some of the people that see a UFO in the sky, they just so happen to have something to film it or photograph it with. I mean, let's face it, nowadays everyone's got a camera and a video camera on their phone, you know, so yeah, so he's describing what he saw. Now, there's just a few points I want to make. First of all, this is something that has made it onto a major news website. Well, BBC News is not just a website, platform, medium, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so it's made it onto there. But then there's something else which I found was rather strange. Okay, now what I'm going to do, let's play this testimony. I'm going to link you to it as well.
I'm flying out of Stansted Airport this morning, and I live in the Midlands, so I was driving east, cross country, and I was probably, I think it's about 15-20 miles from Stansted Airport. I was out in the countryside, 4:15 in the morning, and I saw this big bright light in the sky, and what looked like an aircraft coming towards, or descending towards the road which I was driving. And as it got closer, it then banked to the left, what was to my right, and then as it banked to the left and went across the countryside, I could see underneath, and it wasn't an aeroplane, and it wasn't a helicopter, and it was much bigger than a helicopter, probably the size of an aircraft, but it was certainly of a kind of, I dread saying this, disc shape, because it had several lights flashing all around it, and underneath there were at least two large panel lights, soft white lights underneath, and then it just sat or just circled a certain area above the field for a few moments. I was so gobsmacked, I was trying to negotiate the road, which was a small country lane, and then eventually I dropped down and lost sight of it. But certainly for 2 or 3 minutes I saw what I think was not a normal aircraft, and I'd love the person who was driving in front of me in what looked like a VW transporter, a silver transporter, to contact someone like the police or yourself, because they would have seen it as well. And it was quite a weird moment, and I was wide awake, and you know me, Rachel, George, I'm of sound mind.
Were you a little bit freaked out by it?
I was completely freaked out.
And the fact that you were driving towards Stansted Airport and this was an aircraft type looking thing.
Yeah, but this was a long way from Stansted Airport. I mean, this was at least 15 miles, and this aircraft was going westerly rather than easterly towards Stansted, and it was not the shape of a normal aeroplane. It was a big kind of disc, sort of round shaped craft, and it didn't move. Once it had gone over the field, it was kind of staying in the same area, because I watched it as I could. I watched it for 2 or 3 minutes before I eventually lost sight of it, and then when I decided to go back again through the village, and it's a very quiet area, and I've spoken to someone who knows the area well, and they say there's no military installations in that area, so I would be intrigued to hear if anybody else saw it. It was 4:15 this morning over the village of, I think it's pronounced Cottered, which is near Buntingford in Hertfordshire.
That happened at 4:30 this morning. What was it?
Gosh,
Okay, I'm going to pause it right there, because now, for the remainder of this video, a man speaks, okay, called Timothy Good, and he's giving his take on what it was that this 5 Live presenter saw. So naturally I'm thinking, okay, well, who's Timothy Good? Because he makes some bold statements. He does. Okay, so I had a look and see who this guy is, and it's rather surprising that this thing is on mainstream news. Now let's just carry on playing. Now listen carefully to what he is saying that this is. Okay, now listen.
I'm flying out of Stansted Airport this morning, and
Oh, hang on.
I'm flying out of Stansted Airport this morning, and I live in the middle.
Oh, God, hang on a second. So I'm having some difficulty here because I'm trying to. I went to press play and I went back to the beginning. Don't know what's going on. Okay, you're going to need to listen for yourself. Now, going by memory, this Timothy Good, he says that it is quite possibly extraterrestrial. He's asked a few questions, and he's asked, well, he says it could be extraterrestrial, it could be like our own. And then he was asked, well, how did we develop such technology? He said that we developed it from extraterrestrials teaching us how to do it. And he's talking about basically governments being in allegiance with aliens and taking technology from aliens and stuff. Now, here's a guy saying these things on mainstream media. Doesn't happen very often, especially on BBC News. I know that for a fact because I look at it every day. And so it's rather peculiar. So I'm thinking that if the BBC News wanted to make a laughing stock of this incident, they would probably bring on some controversial figure, some loony UFOlogist, not that they're loony, but one who's perceived to be. But no, they bring on Timothy Good and talk to him. So I looked up about Timothy Good. I'm going to link you to a website, timothygood.co.uk, and he's branded a UFO authority. Just a couple of lines here about Timothy Good. Worldwide research, interviewing key witness and discussing the subject with astronauts, military and intelligence specialists, pilots, politicians and scientists has established Timothy Good as a leading authority on UFOs and the alien presence, the most highly classified subject on Earth. Now, a little bit about how he became interested. He's amassed a wealth of evidence, including several thousand declassified intelligence documents. It says here, Timothy Good has lectured at universities, schools, and at many organisations, including the Institute of Medical Laboratory Sciences, the Royal Canadian Military Institute, the Royal Geographical Society, the Royal Naval Air Reserve Branch, the House of Lords, All-Party UFO Study Group, and the Oxford and Cambridge Union Societies. In January 1989, following the dissolution of the Soviet Empire, he became the first UFO researcher from the West to be interviewed on Russian television. He was invited for discussions at the Pentagon in 1998 and the headquarters of the French Air Force in 2002. He's also acted as consultant for several US Congress investigations. He is known to millions through his numerous television appearances and has produced several documentaries on the subject. It goes on and on and on. Okay, so this guy has a great CV. Okay, so what is this all about? I mean, it was only a blimmin' sighting from one person. There's no news of any other witnesses bringing coherence to the experience. Congruity. Sorry. So what is this? Is it psyops? I don't know, but I thought it was an interesting thing to talk about.